Hi everyone, it's Ayesha here from God FM, and today I want to talk about gaslighting. If you're a targeted individual and you've noticed that you've got problems with ringing in your ears and all these other things, you might like to know it's the lighting. And that term, gaslighting, comes from somewhere. It wasn't just dreamt up out of nowhere. It has substance and it has foundation. And it has roots which go right back to what this is all about. And gaslighting is a term that they use. And, in a moment we'll look at that together. Okay. Because I'm also learning. All right. I'm a targeted individual and I'm under full-time attack with gassing, stalking, hacking, cloning of phone, cloning of SIM cards, home invasions, you name it. And it's gassing with nanotechnology, nanodust, and gaslighting as well. And it's interesting because the gaslighting terms stem mainly from the Masonic lodges, I believe. And I've talked to you about the spraying that I've had on the beds. It's like a wetness that I've had on the bed. It's like just a little bit damp. And so there's another lady that talks about a dust that comes from the lighting. And I don't think it's dust. I think it is speckled bits of liquid gas. And I think it is nano. And I think it is gaslighting. And from World War II, where they said they were all gassed, obviously this is a hint for what will really happen, because those weren't really the children of God and they weren't really gassed like you've been told, right? And they created their fake place of God in 1948, which is 1984, the film, the movie, and the book by George Orwell, where the telly screens will be watching you and, 4 and 4 will equal 5 if it suits them. 4 plus 1 will be 4. And all of those things, and how they change the news depending on what they wanted you to hear. Okay, so bear with me. I'm going to go on to my search engine. And by the way, if you're targeted, you don't really want to have any browser. You've got to be careful what browsers you have. You don't want a default browser because they do everything in duplicate on the browser. So you want to go for a browser that deletes everything as soon as it's up. Okay. Okay. Right. Let's see what gaslighting is. Gaslighting is the production of artificial light from combustion of a fuel gas such as natural gas, methane, propane, butane, and acetylene, and ethylene, hydrogen, carbon monoxide, and coal gas. Well, the light is produced either directly by the flame, generally by using special mixes of illuminating gas to increase brightness, or indirectly with other components such as the gas mantle or the limelight, with the gas primarily functioning to heat the mantle or the lime to incandescence before electricity became sufficiently widespread and economical to allow the general public to use it. Gaslighting was prevalent for outdoor and indoor use in cities and suburbs where the infrastructure for distribution of gas was practical. At that time, the most common fuels for gaslighting were wood gas, coal gas, and in limited cases, water gas. Early gas lights were ignited manually by lamp lighters, although many later designs are self-igniting. Wow, very interesting, isn't it? Some urban historical districts retain gas street lighting, and gas lighting is used indoors or outdoors to create or preserve a nostalgic effect. Ooh, modern use. Yes, gas lamp at Oakworth Railway Station in West Yorkshire. Yes, they still have them. And these just look like normal lamps, by the way, right? So just maybe you do a little search. Don't take my word for it, okay? But we're talking about, so we found out that gas lighting, yes, is still being used. But I want to find out about the gas lighting term or phrase that people use when they are saying about you. Examples of gas lighting phrases used to confuse and control. Okay, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. But with everything, I've got to accept the cookies, consent, accept. They want to know if I would like to be tracked. No, thank you. They also would like to know if they've got access to my microphone. No, thank you. They'd also like to know if I'll give them access to my photographs or my camera. No, thank you. And so this goes on and on in everything I do. And then I've also got to prove I'm human. I don't know about you, but I had it actually with a Word document, and I had something really important to do. But I was delayed by 45 minutes. Why? Because to sign into Word, I had to do a human test and all of those things. And to be honest, it was so difficult, I couldn't do it. I am human, but they made the image so tiny, I had to almost get a magnifying glass to be able to work out what image I was trying to compare with. But sorry, I was distracted there slightly from what I was originally discussing. So gaslighting is a term that I had when I was, after I was married, I went out with this man, and he would always use the term gaslighting. And there's a book called The Game, and men who like to play games with women, they read this book called The Game. And this was one of those people. Maybe go and look for that book as well. All right. So examples of gaslighting phrases used to confuse and control. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation in which a person seeks to undermine another person's perception of reality, memory, or sanity. As it is not always easy to identify gaslighting, you should be mindful of common phrases and language used by a gaslighter. Gaslighting is a harmful and manipulative behavior tactic that can have severe consequences on the victim's mental and emotional well-being. Therefore, it is important to pay attention to how interactions with others make you feel. Below you will find a list of both common and more subtle gaslighting phrases. Let's see what we can find. Gaslighting can occur in various contexts such as social relationships, romantic relationships, and workplaces. Although gaslighting behaviors can sometimes occur unintentionally, they often involve a person purposefully manipulating another to create doubt and confusion. The gaslighter wants to gain control, power, or advantage over their victim by undermining their perception of reality. These phrases can be classified into 6 different categories: trivializing, stonewalling, countering, blocking, denying, and blame shifting. Trivializing involves minimizing or downplaying the significance of someone's feelings, experience, or concerns, making them feel as though their emotions or issues are unimportant or unworthy of attention. For example, you are so sensitive, you need to lighten up. It's not that bad. You're overreacting. Why are you getting so worked up over something so insignificant? Stonewalling is when someone refuses to engage or communicate with another, often by giving them the silent treatment or avoiding conversations altogether. For example, giving the silent treatment, refusing to engage in conversation, or ignoring the victim's attempts to communicate, ignoring the victim's concerns and pretending not to hear or understand them. Countering means challenging, contradicting, and questioning someone's memories, perceptions, or experiences. For example, "That's not what happened. You must be remembering it wrong. Are you sure about that? I never said that. You're just imagining things." Blocking or diverting refers to intentionally redirecting or changing the topic of conversation whenever certain issues are brought up to prevent honest communication. For example, "You're always bringing up old issues. Can't we just move on? Why do you always have to talk about that? Why do you focus so much on the negative? Let's talk about something positive instead." Denying refers to the flat-out rejecting or refusing to acknowledge the reality of a situation or one's actions. This strategy is meant to confuse the victim by asserting that they are mistaken or imagining things. For example, it did not happen that way. You are making things up. I never said that. You're crazy if you think I would do such a thing. Blame shifting means assigning fault or responsibility onto someone else to avoid taking accountability and to make the victim feel guilty. "This is all your fault. You're always causing problems. You're the reason I'm upset. I only did that because you did." Gaslighting phrases in families. Unfortunately, gaslighting can occur in families where there are skewed power dynamics, such as in parent, child, or sibling relationships. Additionally, close relationships and emotional ties can make it more challenging to recognize and address such behavior. It is also possible for adult children to gaslight their parents, which typically occurs if these children had witnessed this behavior growing up. Below are some examples of gaslighting phrases that can be seen in families. I always get this one wrong, don't I? Trivializing. "How are you going to handle the real world? You're too sensitive. You're always making things up to get attention. You're just being dramatic. It's not as bad as you're making it out to be." And then stonewalling. Gaslighter gives the silent treatment and ignores the victim's attempts to communicate. And then countering, "That's not what happened. You must be remembering it wrong. You are not upset. You're just hungry and tired. You're just twisting my words. I didn't mean it in that way." And blocking, "Why do you always have to argue with me? We don't need to talk about this. Let's just drop the subject. I don't want to hear any more of your complaints. Keep it to yourself." And then denying, "It never happened that way. I never said that. You must have misunderstood me. You're making up stories to make me look bad. I would never do that." And then blame shifting. "If you weren't so difficult to deal with, we wouldn't have these issues. It is your fault. My life has turned out this way. You create so many problems in this family." And then gaslighting phrases in friendships. You also might have friends and narcissistic traits within these friendships who gaslight to fulfill their desire to be in control. This behavior typically comes from a place of jealousy, superiority, and manipulation. Often this is a result of having grown up in a family where gaslighting was common. Here are some examples of gaslighting phrases seen in friendships. Trivializing. "You're overreacting. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Why are you getting so worked up? It was just a joke." Stonewalling. The friend suddenly stops responding to messages and avoids hanging out with you. without any explanation, and then countering, you're imagining things. You're twisting my words. I never said that. That's not how it happened. You are remembering incorrectly, and then blocking. I don't want to talk about this. Let's discuss something else. I really don't want to get into this. Can we change the subject? I don't want to talk about it right now. And then denying, I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I apologize? What are you talking about? I would never say that to you. Stop making up stories to make me look bad. And then blame shifting. If you weren't so difficult to be around, we wouldn't be having these arguments. You always are causing problems in our friendship. You're the reason why our friendship isn't working out. And then gaslighting phrases in relationships. Gaslighting in romantic relationships can be especially damaging as it affects the intimacy and the trust between partners. At the beginning of the relationship, you might not notice the seeds of doubt your partner is planting in your mind, but once your defenses are down, the self-doubt starts to creep in. Eventually, you feel you cannot trust yourself and your perceptions or perspective, giving your partner their desired power over you. It's essential for individuals to recognize these gaslighting tactics from the beginning. If you feel confused or start to doubt yourself, you should seek professional help to navigate these issues or consider leaving the relationship. Here are some examples of gaslighting phrases seen in a relationship platform background. Trivializing. You need to calm down. This is not worth getting upset over. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? You are always overreacting. You're being so dramatic and overly sensitive. And then stonewalling. The partner stops responding to messages and calls and avoids spending time with the other person without explanation. Countering. You're always twisting things to make me look bad. That's not how it happened. If this relationship is so awful, why are you even with me? And then blocking, let's not talk about this now. Can we talk about it later? I'm too tired. I can't have this conversation. You're too emotional to think rationally right now. Denying, you must be confused. It never happened like that. That never happened. You're just imagining or paranoid. I never said that. You're always making things up. Blame shifting. You make me do this. This is your fault. If you were less demanding, we wouldn't have these issues. And then at work, you can have gaslighting in the workplace as well to create a toxic environment, negatively impacting its employees and the well-being of the staff and the productivity of team members. So then we have some examples of that as well. Trivializing, you're too sensitive. You're making a big deal out of this. Calm down. It's just a part of the job. Stonewalling, your colleague or manager stops responding. Countering, you're wrong. I never said that. That's not what I told you. You must have misunderstood me. And then blocking. Let's not discuss this now. We don't need to address this issue. I don't have time to deal with this. And then denying. What are you talking about? I never said that. It never happened this way. You're imagining things. I would never discriminate against you. I never promised you that promotion. You must be mistaken. Blame shifting. If you were so more competent, we wouldn't have these issues. The problem is on you. You're the one who can't handle the workload. You're the reason why our team is failing. And then we've also got the subtle gaslighting phrases. Subtle gaslighting phrases can be more difficult to detect. So we've got the trivializing of this. Examples, you're usually so level-headed. Why are you getting so upset over this? I didn't mean it that way, but if you want to overreact, go ahead. You're being a little sensitive, don't you think? Stonewalling, the person gives a half-hearted response like, I don't know, it's fine, without engaging further. Countering, you are the only one who thinks that. I don't remember saying that, but maybe you misunderstood me. You're just being paranoid. Blocking,
let's just forget everything and start over. Let's not get into this now. Can we talk about this some other time? Or more positive, something more positive. Denying I don't understand what I did wrong. I never said that, never did that. You must be confusing me with someone else. Don't be silly. You're imagining things. And then blame shifting. Why are you lying to me? I wouldn't have reacted that way if you hadn't provoked me. You're the one who caused the issue, not me. So much. I'm telling you, it's even stressful reading all of that. But that's gaslighting. And isn't it interesting that gaslighting is a term that they would create, a phrase that pretty much covers gaslighting and the gassing of innocent people with gassing, with nano. And I actually think they probably do it through the lighting. It wouldn't be difficult if you think about it. Especially if everything's remote. If you think about it, if everything's remote and it can be done through water and all this, just think about it. I mean, I don't know enough about it, but it would make sense. And today we had a lot of fog around here. And I think there's something in the fog as well. So yeah, I wanted to talk about the gaslighting, and I think I've covered everything. And it's a difficult thing if you're being gaslighted by someone. It's very hard to pick up because it's a bit like gang stalking. It's something unprovable. It's an invisible weapon. And even though it's not a physical cut, it hurts. And sometimes that hurts more than when you can see the wound, you know. When you play mind games with somebody, mind games are really part of this narcissistic behavior as well, then it can really affect somebody and they start to really doubt themselves, they lose their confidence, they get anxiety, they become paranoid, they become insecure, and eventually become a shriveled, hollow version of who they were. They're not the bouncy, happy, confident, giggly, smiley, person anymore. So these sort of things can really affect someone. And I found that the people who are Masons and into all of that sort of stuff, they really enjoy playing mind games and playing around with your emotions and leading you to feel confident and trust with a relationship of any kind, even a friendship, only to dash your hopes with a smile on their face. It's really sick. I've witnessed it, and it's very interesting. It is very interesting indeed. That people get a power play out of it. You know how they terrorize children and then they drink their blood and they get the adrenochrome. They feed off the negativity that pumps through the blood. And so these are like Dracula people. But you also get emotional Draculas. You do. And they feed off the negative vibrations and the putting you down, and because they just, that's what they're made of. And I guess it's making them feel good inside, and then they've got to justify them to themselves. And that usually involves more abuse. And then they convince themselves that the person that they're doing it to is a bad person. I've actually been ripped off by someone, and I'm sure this guy actually convinced himself he didn't rip me off. When you tell a lie enough times, you start to believe it. And these people are so convinced that the lie, by the time they've told their lies about someone to justify the evil that they're doing against someone, they become convinced of their own lies. that when the truth starts to unravel, and the true horror of what is really going on starts to unfold, these guys really have nowhere to hide. They're really good actors, very good actors indeed, and so, you know, people find it really, really hard to believe that that lovely person who was acting so kind and diddly dum and all the other stuff isn't actually what they portray themselves to be. Okay, so this is also part of gaslighting, and I want to discuss this. This is relationships, all right? So in a relationship, you know, you would imagine that if you're living with someone, that you would actually know that person, wouldn't you, right? Right. So, but what happens when you've lived with someone for 13, 14 years, and you're best friends with them, and then they cheat on you, and now you're enemy? Like you're an enemy. What do you make of that? Well, I make of it that that person was never, ever genuine, ever, in any part of the relationship. Because if they were, they couldn't have changed so drastically. So that means that they were acting all that time before you divorced or split up, and they never really had feelings for you, and everything was based on a lie anyway. So that's how they can go from pretending they love you to hating your guts and trying to destroy you. And this is where Hollywood comes into it as well. Hollywood and actors, have you noticed they all change their names? So apparently all the children of God, they get a new name. So all the Hollywood actors are professional actors. That's what they really are very good at, acting, pretending. And it's a stage, isn't it, you know? So basically you've got people who lead double lives, and you've got people who are professional actors. Did you know there was a shopping center in America, and the guy was saying about it that they would hire pretend shoppers, pay people to go around shopping to fill the shopping center, to make it look better for the shopping center. Paid actors. You imagine it. So if they're prepared to go to those levels just for shopping centers, if you're gang stalked, if you're a targeted individual, then the prospect of paying someone to go and gaslight you, right, and do the love bombing and all of those things that happen, sending in the honeypot to lead you off your pathway, all for an act. They're all actors. You know, what's 13 years? If you look at the big world stage, they've been planning all this for some time, haven't they, eh? So it's no surprise that someone would, you know, go to the extent of marrying you, getting you pregnant, then leaving you to bring up the children by yourself, because this was what they are paid to do. Maybe they're not paid a salary. Maybe they just get the extra help in promotions and guaranteed extra support, you know, in lots of ways. But usually there's financial benefits, I would imagine. Plus then they do witchcraft and all that. And they're probably told that, you know, their careers will be easy peasy, and getting houses, buying houses will be easy, and all of those kind of things, you know. Inheritance tax will be waived with your family. All those kind of nice things, I would imagine. How much tax are you paying every year on your income? All right, then what we'll do is we'll do a tax rebate for the next 10 years and whatever, or we'll put that towards your retirement and whatever. So there's always going to be some payback for this kind of thing. And this is gaslighting. And the gaslighting isn't just something that happens individually, independently to people. It can happen to groups of people, nations, worlds, leaders, schools, media, even the weather is manipulated. Everyone's being gaslit about the weather. Really, our history, that's all gaslighting also. So if you realize that it's all about acting and lies, and that gaslighting really does fall into the category and language of the devil. And it's all about making the victim feel guilty, doubt their own mind, and also turning other people against the victim. So, because once someone's playing those games with you, the gaslighting, then to justify it, they've got to continue with that story with their neighbors and friends and diddly-dum. And if you're targeted individual, then it's much the same play, same cards, just a slightly different board. It's the same board, same card game, pretty much. But yeah, if you think about the word gaslighting, the phrase, it has to come from somewhere. And the gaslighting, I reckon there are going to be hidden effects by gassing people through the lighting. And because there's no history from our previous hundreds of years or whatever, there's no history written. We don't really know what technology they've got or they know about or they used. Like, I didn't know I could hack anyone's phone, or clone anyone's phone, or take over someone's SIM card just so easily until I did it by mistake. And then I thought, oh wow, I could do this to anyone, really. Easy peasy. So there's something in the lighting as well, and that's why they call it gaslighting. I don't know. But if anyone has any idea about the real sinister reason behind it, let me know, okay? Thank you. It's Ayesha from God FM, and if you want to find me, you can find me on Podbean, Spotify, Amazon, Samsung, Chrome, YouTube, Apple, X, as well as TikTok, as God FM News, God FM New, God FM Radio, and God FM Group, as well as God FM Media. You can email me, admin@godfm.org.uk, and you can WhatsApp me, +44 777 35 777 All right. Have a good day. God bless you. Kiss, kiss.